All right, guys, let's get started. All right, so we're picking up where we left off last class, and we're gonna start with communicating on social media. That's what we're gonna start with today, and we're gonna go through some of the ways. Uh, Let me get my mic closer to me so you guys can hear me clearly. So we're gonna go through some of the ways we use social media to communicate as a brand or as a business, and some of the important things that we need to ensure that we are doing in terms of communicating on social media. So let's start by understanding what do I mean when I say communicating on social media. Uh, Primarily, what I am okay. Primarily, what I'm talking about is the content that you create on these platforms, and I'm being broad when I talk about content now, because if it's Twitter, it may be a tweet, which is probably more text based than anything else. It could be a video, it could be a piece of audio. It's just really any piece of brand related content that we're using to communicate that is being distributed via social media that enables internet users to access, share, engage with, add to, and co-create. So that's kind of what we mean by it's going back to why we're using social media. So we're using social media because we want to build networks, communities. We want to communicate our brand and our offering or our product to people. We want to engage, etc. We want to give people an opportunity to engage with us. That is the communication. That's the interaction. But there are certain ways you can make that interaction more impactful, more meaningful, and that's what we're gonna look at. So the first way is through brand storytelling. What do we mean by brand storytelling? Before we can talk about telling your story on social media, let's look at what storytelling is. So it's using facts and narratives, and by narratives we mean your perspective. You're sharing your perspective. You're creating a story, right? And that's the story you want to tell. That's your narrative, right? That's your thoughts, feelings, opinions on what this thing is. And you're using those facts and the narratives to communicate and convey a message, right? Usually to an audience. So you're using facts and your own thoughts and feelings about something, and you're communicating that. You're creating a message around that, and you're communicating that message to your audience, right? And the stories are revealed through words and action with improvisation, theatrics, or some embellishment, right? We're gonna spice it up, spruce it up a little bit so the story is more interesting, thought provoking. Now, when you're telling a story, there's always a reaction that you have in your mind. How do you want somebody to react to this story that I'm telling? Is it a funny story? You want them to laugh? Is it something thought provoking? You want them to think about it even after they've watched. You want it to be in the back of their heads. Is it something that's educational? Is something that you want them to learn? Is it something that is of some kind of critical importance to them or to you, right? Some critical piece of information that they need to know in order to make a decision about something, or in order to to formulate an opinion about something. Because what you want to happen after you tell the story is for an opinion to be formed in the mind of your audience, right? And you tell the story in such a way where you can almost craft that opinion for your audience, right? without actually telling them what to think about it. So you want to give them enough information, you want to give them enough facts, you want to clearly communicate the message in such a way where 99% of the time you can get them around to your point of view or to feel what you wanted them to feel on listening to the story. Now that's if you are good at telling stories, right? What you're doing is you're encouraging their imagination, and that means that there has to be some kind of two-way interaction between you, the storyteller, and your listener. Okay, so it can't just be that you're gonna create this piece of content where you're telling this amazing story and you're just leaving the content out there. There has to be some kind of interaction between you and the audience, and you see it happens a lot in movies. That's why we have trailers. You have movie trailers so people can get an idea of what this movie is about, but then you have director's cut. You have I don't remember, six vignettes, movie vignettes, where they take they look at the different scenes of the movie, or you have the actor or the director come and talk about what was the motive behind it. Now some people may say that that's counterproductive because again you're interfering with the imagination of the listener. But sometimes the story has to be contextualized so the listener can actually understand the meaning behind the story, right? So now that we understand what storytelling is generally, right? Let's look at what storytelling is on social media, because you'll find that it's not very different. A lot of these personalities on social media, digital personalities, digital rock stars really on social media, they're very good at telling stories. Now, whether or not the story is true, you're going to have to decipher through that. That is for the audience to decide whether or not this is a truthful, valid story. Sometimes the audience don't care if the story is 100% true because some parts of it resonated with them, right? And so you're using these social media platforms to tell stories about your brand, about your product, about yourself as the person behind that brand or product, to captivate your audience, right? And what it enables you to do is expose your brand to your audience, telling them who you are, what you're about, what you represent in a more theatric way, I guess, in a more in a less it's in a less academic way. Let's put it at that. It's less, as I said, hard sell, and it's definitely a softer sell where you are trying to evoke an emotion or you're trying to get them to do something. Guys, one thing you'll notice me always talking about getting your audience to do something, and that's because with digital marketing, your goal is to always get your audience to do something, to take an action, right? Or commit to taking an action, right? And so whether the action is to get a sale, to get a lead, to engage, to follow, whatever it is, the whole point of it is to get them to act, and in this case, react to something, right? Now, what is the importance, or before we go to the importance of storytelling, let's talk about the integral role that social media plays in storytelling, because what social media has done, it has given all of us a platform, right? A soapbox, if you will, where we can stand and we can say, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, this is why you should care about me, this is why you should listen to what I have to say, this is why my product is good, or why my service is good, right? So social media gives us a platform that we never had before to narrate our own stories, to tell our own stories. Whereas before social media, especially for us in the Caribbean, we had people telling our stories for us. We were always, oh, the people in the Caribbean, the Jamaicans who were formerly slaves, who were formerly colonized, and oh, the crime rate is so terrible, and you have to be very careful when you go to Jamaica, you're gonna get shot, right? So we always, ever since, we've had people telling our own stories for us because they had the platform. Whether it's the BBC or CNN or whatever, they had the platform. Now, with the dawn of social media and the power of the internet, or powered by the internet, a regular person like me and you can say, actually, this is how I experienced Jamaica, or this is how I experienced this particular thing. And so what you have are several hundreds of thousands of millions of people going on social media, telling their own stories or narrating their own stories, and each of them adding a little bit to build this picture on around something, right? Now you have a better understanding of how Jamaicans are, of how Trinidadians are, of how Americans are, because you have these different people adding to the story by telling their own stories. And it's the same for brands and businesses. Before, a brand or business was seen as this faceless, nameless entity that you could not interact with. You try to talk to a manager, you have to go through 4 secretaries, a phone operator, and probably an auxiliary worker who accidentally answered the phone, right? No name, no face, no accountability. Now on social media, who you? What is this about? They're not just buying the product because it helps solve a problem. Of course, that's the main reason why they would buy a product or purchase a service. But they want to know that they're purchasing a service or buying a product from somebody that they actually trust. And trust and loyalty comes through relatability. It comes to me understanding you. It comes to me liking you. For millennials, for Gen Zers, they have to like you. Okay? And storytelling is one way of humanizing your brand. It's one way of linking your brand story and your brand values, brand benefits. You want to spell it out for them. This is why my brand is good. This is the value you'll get. This is the benefit of being a part of my community, right? And you also want to be authentic in the way you tell that story, or genuine in the way that you tell that story, because it is not hard for internet sleuths to figure it out. Okay? It's not hard for them to go, okay, but January 20th, 1995, you said. It's not hard for them to do that because information is so abundantly available to them on the internet. So you have to make sure that you stay true to your story. You tell your story in an authentic manner, and you understand from the beginning what you're trying to do by telling that story. And I think that one of the brands that get it right 99% of the time is Rolex. Now, you think, well, Rolex is a big brand, well-established legacy brand. Everybody knows Rolex, right? Of course. Everybody. No, we have not all had a Rolex. We've all heard of Rolex, right? At this point, Rolex can go, here, watch, buy it. And the people who can afford to buy Rolex will buy Rolex. Why? Because Rolex has a history. They have a legacy, right? However, Rolex understands that people die, right? New consumers come on the market every day. And so they have to keep reintroducing themselves and retelling their stories. Now, let's have a quick look at how Rolex retells a story or tells their story. I want you to watch this video and tell me what you think.
Some would say it's a classic. Maybe they're right. If a classic means its inspiration goes way back, and its values continue to resonate onwards. Some would say it's designed for a lady. Maybe they're right. If a lady means undeniably resistant. If it means trusting that inner ticking always, transcending what is expected to pursue a higher standard with unyielding grace. So if you say it's a classic designed for a lady, maybe you're right. The lady date just.
All right, guys, I want you to tell me how you feel about what you just saw. What is Rolex trying to say? Makes you want to buy one? Trying to pull in women customers? Clever, timeless, captivating. Feel like you want to buy one. It's a brand for everyone. It's appealing to the emotion for sure. Support strong women, diversity. The brand is classic. Women are classic. Strength of a woman. Yeah, they want more women to buy as it's mostly a male watch. I don't think I agree with you, Nicole. I don't think Rolex is a male watch necessarily. They've always made... Rolex has always done this thing where they have a male version of a watch and a female version of a watch. They're never one thing or the other. It's luxury. Clearly, even the stories looks luxurious, right? Makes you feel important. If I got one, elevated as a woman. It's always been an affluent brand. And notice the women that they use. It's a variety of women. You had black women, Hispanic women, white women. And what were they doing? They were athletes. They were in the opera. They were actresses. And so what they're trying to say, somebody said already, is that it's for everyone. It's for all women across all spheres of life, right? So that is what Rolex is trying to say. And if you should go and look at Rolex's platforms, there's a lot of videos. They have a Rolex Enterprise Award. And they tell a lot of the stories about the people who get their awards. There was one man who loves bats. And they're telling the story of how he fell in love with bats. And you're going, what does this have to do with Rolex? Right? But if you understand how Rolex brands themselves as a timeless, inspirational, you get a Rolex, you've made it. You have achieved something if you can acquire a Rolex for yourself. And Rolex understands that that is the place they hold in consumerism, in retail, but in people's lives, in people's stories. A Rolex is a heirloom passed down from generation to generation to generation. So they know this. They understand the perception about Rolex. And so they do a lot of these storytellings to kind of reinforce the timelessness, the luxury, the achievement that comes with, or that is associated with their product, right? So craftsmanship, attention to detail, all that good stuff. So no, Rolex never said any of that in their commercial just now, in their videos just now. None of that was said, but you felt it. It's the words that they use, it's the tone, and you got the message. You got the message. Rolex never tell you said this is the message, but you got the message, and each of us got something different from that message, and it was very emotional. It touched you, it got you in the feels, right? And it was the music, it was how it was put together, it was the voice. And you'll find that if you go through Rolex's, I will say, guys, take some time and go through Rolex's social media. It's very touchy-feely. They do employ a lot of feelings and emotion, right? Because they have a new watch coming out, and the watch face looks like petals. And they did this whole, I think, about 4 videos talking about the dewdrops, which are the diamonds on the watch face and the petals, and you're going, oh my God, this is so beautiful, I want one. And then you go look at the price and go, okay, all right, going back to reality, can't afford it, right? But it makes you want to get one. Not only is it beautiful, but it reminds me of nature, all that good stuff. So that's very good brand storytelling for you. Let's look at the other one, which is responsiveness, right? So not only should you become really good at telling your brand story, you should also be good at responding. Because this is the thing. What is the point of you being on social media, having a presence on social media, if you're going to do the same thing you did before you had the opportunity or the platform? So if it is that I'm calling your store or your office and I'm not getting through to you, I would expect that if you're on social media, it would be easier to get through to you there, because otherwise, why are you on social media? And so it is important for brands, especially if your audience is in the millennial Gen Z category, it is important for your brand to be responsive on social media. You must interact with your customers or potential customers. You must engage to get engagement. Engagement begets engagement, right? You use social media as an extension of your customer service apparatus. It means that you are using the platforms to further provide options to communicate, to expand on the brand experience. Now, when I'm going to send First Global a message to say, I can't get on your bank online banking, I've been trying to do a transaction, something about token limit, and I have something to do urgently, and I said this to them on the 18th of February, and them not respond to me until the 22nd of February to ask me if I'm still experiencing difficulties. I didn't respond because 4 days later, when I said it was urgent, 4 days later. So guys, it's imperative, because then going back to the very first class when we talk about how digital and technology has changed consumer behavior, nobody has patience for this. Nobody has this kind of patience. Why? Because there's options. We have options, right? We have options, and we're not going to settle for what can be considered mediocre behavior. Why are you on social media providing this avenue for communication and then not communicating through the avenue? Might as well I'd sit down on the phone for 4 hours and try to get through to you guys. At least I would have gotten through on that day. Right? Responsiveness also means you respond to comments. You don't just post a video and leave it. People are commenting because they're trying to engage. Engage back. Engage, and you keep re-engaging, right? Ask questions in the stories and DMs. Sometimes you need to be the one to make first contact. Follow back. It is not cute to have 10,000 followers and you're following 20 people or 0 people. That also is creating a perception about your brand, and you may not like the perception that is creating. Because if social media is meant to be an interactive, communication platform, and you're not interacting or communicating, you're telling me that you don't see nobody on social media that you like as a brand or a business? Nobody? That's hard to believe. It means that as a brand or a business, you're not using social media the way social media is meant to be used, but you're asking me to engage you in that way when you're not engaging anybody else in that way. Reciprocity is the name of the game, guys. Now, I'm not saying you have to follow everybody. No. I am saying that you need to pay attention to who are the persons that are interacting with you the most. The persons who are always sharing your stuff, commenting on your stuff, liking your stuff consistently. Follow those people back. Clearly, they're wanting to engage with you. engage back. There may be other brands or businesses that you want to collaborate with. Follow them. Leave messages. Send a DM. Right? So there must be, because there are other things that you can benefit from by using social media. And it's not just building community, etc. You can position yourself for other brand deals, for brand collaborations, for all sorts of stuff, but you have to be responsive and you have to engage on social media. Let's talk about social listening. And what do we mean by social listening? It's also a part of brand responsiveness because you're keeping your ears to the ground to ensure that you're not being left out of the conversation, to ensure that you aren't the conversation in a bad way, right? So you want to know what's being said about your brand. You want to know what are some of the changes in audience wants and needs. What are some industry changes that you can capitalize on or benefit from? Also, what are some gaps you can plug? What are some trends that may benefit your brand? Oh, sorry, last one. What are some trends that can benefit your brand? And I find that one of the brands that are one of the fastest growing brands generally, and especially on social media, is Canva. Because Canva is exceptionally responsive and they're very good at social listening. You know why? You remember a while ago I said ask questions in your DMs? Let's look at an example of how to do that. And this is using Twitter. So in March this year, Canva asked its users, if you had the power to create a new Canva feature, what would it be? So they had hundreds of responses. And of course, you see that they're responding using funny memes and GIFs. And they respond to everybody. They literally respond, well, to most people. And I, being a huge follower and fan of Canva, commented. And I said, listen, guys, it's a list. These are the things that I want. And they responded. And they said, yeah, keep them coming. We #Canva love these superb ideas. We'll definitely look into adding these to our roadmap soon. Thanks a lot. That's awesome. Here's this big global brand. First of all, trying to include its users into its decision-making process. And this is something Canva has done for a long time. But it's because for a long time, people have been saying, hey, Canva, can you do this? Can you do that? And they weren't as responsive before. Because I cannot tell you how long it took for Canva to put that justify button. We suffered for that justify button. And that drop shadow. We suffered for like 3 years. We've been in Canva here, guys. And then we had it. And then suddenly we started having everything. And we're like, this is Christmas. Right? And it's because they started listening, because they started realizing that now that people are seeing Canva doing it and Canva doing it successfully. And by doing it, I mean creating this platform for non-designers that we can go and create designs for ourselves that look halfway decent. Then you had other platforms coming in, jumping in as well. And Canva realized that competition is heating up. Right? And so, no, I'm not saying that's the reason why they started listening, but I know after a couple platforms came on board all of a sudden, they were very attentive. Right? And so you saw them asking a lot of questions. Now, this is one of the ways you can, be interactive on a platform like Twitter, right? Because social media is not just Instagram and Facebook. This is one way you can be interactive. You can use Twitter to ask questions. Ask questions of your followers, of your users. Throw a question out there. They had 410 responses. That's a lot of data that they're collecting, and what they can do is go through all of these responses and see what is it people saying, what are they saying, what are they telling us that they want. And if they have enough people telling them one particular thing, look at this, content aware fill. Interesting idea, Nathan. Mind telling us more about this? And then they engage in a conversation with Nathan. A retouch tool which can remove unwanted things from images, blah, 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 blah. Guys, now you realize that Canva is becoming a more sophisticated tool with more sophisticated functions for non-designers, right? So here's Canva saying, I'm writing this down. This is good stuff, man. Care to tell us more? So if they don't understand something, you respond. They ask you to expound. This is them re-engaging, engaging and re-engaging, right? Because they want to make sure that they understand. And notice Canva has a hashtag, Canva love, right? So when you create your own hashtags and your community latches on to that hashtag, it can amplify your message even more and bring more people into your community, right? So having a branded hashtag that your community is aware of and that you encourage them to use is also a good way of being responsive as a brand and being interactive as a brand as well. All right. Building relationships versus accumulating followers. Now, I am not going to sit here and be a hypocrite and say, oh no, followers are not important. Followers are important, guys. Followers are important. Followers are important. Followers are important because that's what social media is for. It's so we can create a profile with cool content that people can follow us and we can follow other people and we can engage and interact and all that good stuff, right? So followers are not bad. However, if it's just I want more followers and not I want to build a relationship with the people that are following me and I want the people who are following me to have a relationship with me, then you're going to run into some problems. Because with relationships, there's trust, there's loyalty, there's there's motivation to see each grow and become more successful. There's all that involved in a relationship. Whereas if it's just a follower thing, there's no commitment. There's no feeling there either way, right? So because you're using social media as a community building platform, and because your community can offer exponential value to your brand in the form of community marketing, sharing your message, bringing new people in, right? It's important that you nurture that relationship with people who are interested in community building with you, right? Followers are not necessarily part of your community. I'm not saying that people who follow you are not part of the community. I'm saying it is not automatic that they're a part of your community. You have to do a little bit more work to convert a follower to a community member, right? They add nothing to your brand. And all of your brand building efforts is not just for people to come and sit down in your follower and not do anything. You actually want your community to take action. Remember, we talk about taking an action, right? Your community members will always take an action. Whether the action is to share, to comment, to recommend you, to give you a like, whatever the action is, they are motivated to take an action because they have a vested interest in you and your brand. Unlike followers who just sit there. Every now and again, if they come across it, they will like your stuff and they move on, right? And so what you want to ensure is that within that follower count are your community members that you're regularly interacting with, engaging with, building trust, building loyalty, because your community also acts as insulation for your brand. And I always use the example of Bayhive, right? Or the Rihanna Army, or which one of them, right? There's nothing you can say bad about Beyonce on the internet without her followers literally activating. Same thing about Rihanna, right? There's not much you can you can say bad things if you're willing to suffer the consequences. I have seen Don Lemon on CNN having a guest on his thing that said something about Beyonce that wasn't necessarily bad, but wasn't glowing. And Don Lemon, after he came back from a commercial break, was like, listen, do not come for me. I did not say that. I love Beyonce. Because they know. You're just going to see bees filling up your comment section. And next thing you know, you're trying to log into your account and you don't have one. It has happened. Okay? But that's an extreme fan thing. But as a brand, your community can insulate you, meaning that they will rebuff any negative commentary, or counteract any negative commentary. They will act as messengers for your brand. If anybody wants information about your brand, they'll gladly provide information before you can even respond. They'll go, yes, it's launching on January 1st. Thank you. Right? Because they know, or they feel like they know you, and they feel like they have to protect your brand because they are now vested or invested in it. Right? And it offers social proofing as well, where you have people going out there and talking about you and recommending you and say, oh yeah, man, this is amazing. And that brings people in, right? And the reason why I have Wonder Gal here is because for somebody with what is her follower count now? I think her follower count now, I've seen some Wanga. She's now at 4,000 followers, 4,000 plus followers. Now, there's something to be said about slow and steady growth versus quick flash in the pan kind of thing and then stagnation. Slow, steady growth means that you're not gonna have a rush of people following you at once. But what you can do, or what will happen if you're doing it correctly, is that the people who are following you will have a greater impact on your brand because they're following you for the right reasons. And so Wonder Girl, which you can consider a micro creator with 4,000 followers, have been able to do so many things. She has had brand deals. She has done all sorts of different projects with 4,000 followers. And at the time when she was doing these things, she had less than 3,000 followers. But her community, or what I should say is, she never had followers, she had a community. And within that community were persons who they were in a position where they could help her advance her brand off social media. And that is what I think. Certainly I've not had this conversation with her, but having watched her growth over a period of time, that's what I think happened, right? And of course, she's very good at what she does. Her content is good. She's good at storytelling, especially when it comes to food. She has expanded into other platforms like podcasts, right? And so I think how she has gone about growing her platform, I think is the right way. It's slow, but it's steady, and I think there's a lot of strategy behind that, right? And her brand is really community powered, and I think that is why she has realized some of the successes that she has realized as a micro creator. All right, so community building. Why is community building important as a brand or business on social media? Because your community attracts people for all the things that we said already. They attract people, they help you market, they provide social proofing, and sales eventually, because if they're attracting more people to your brand or to your business and they're recommending you, that recommendation can lead to a sale, right? Because social media is full of distractions. As I said, people have options. But what would make them come to your platform and stay on your platform is if they trust your community members who say that, yeah, this is a good place for you to be. It acts as a microcosm of your market. Your community acts as a microcosm of your market, because included within your community are maybe prior customers and potential customers that those potential customers will bring in, right? And so that serves as a microcosm, so you can understand a little bit more what your target, what your market demands. What is the market asking for? What do they want? Blah blah blah. You can use your community to figure that out. It's also a way of to build your audience, right? Again, attracting people to your platform, other people engaging with your content because they're sharing your content far and wide. So they're also helping you build audience, and by building audience, I mean building engagement. You can use your community to test products and services, to give you real-time feedback, to let you know that, hey, this was good, this was not so good, I don't like how this smelled, this was great, blah, blah, blah. You can use your audience to test things. It's also a form of social responsibility, because if you have an audience that you can activate and get them to go out into the community and do things, so you're creating activities for your audience to do that maybe is giving back to a community, etc. It's also part of building your social responsibility. When Jamaica Environment Trust can come out and say, hey guys, it's beach cleaning, and you have thousands of people showing up on beaches to clean up, that's community power, right? And that's the power of community building. And our guest is here, so I'm going to go through real quick. Consistency and frequency is the next one, guys. And by consistency and frequency, what I mean is two things in terms of consistency. Consistency in terms of quality, and consistency in terms of the amount of time in between you posting a piece of content. That's literally what I mean. Consistency and frequency. Sameness. Instagram, I don't remember when it was, but Instagram had put out something to say, because there was this back and forth about chronological order versus non-chronological order. And Instagram said that actually what really matters in terms of engagement and ensuring that your audience is seeing your content is consistency, frequency, and sameness. And it's because of how their algorithm works, right? And so they were talking about consistency in terms of the quality of your post, frequency in terms of how often you post. Consistency and frequency is kind of similar in terms of how often you post, but also when you post. And sameness is talking about if your content is connected to your brand, if you're always making that connection, if you're staying on brand, pretty much, because of the algorithm, depending on when somebody jumps onto the Instagram platform, can determine when they see your content or where on the feed your content falls. Now, whether or not this is still the same, because Instagram is literally reinventing itself, we're not sure. But outside of Instagram, these three things remain important. Ensuring that you are consistently engaging your audience, that you're posting on a frequent schedule. Now, a frequent schedule don't mean you're posting every day. It means you as a brand and a business, you're establishing a schedule and you're conditioning your audience to expect something from you every Wednesday and Thursday, or every Friday and Saturday. You set that schedule, and then you're making sure that your content is staying on brand. So if I come to Telika's platform because she's wanted to teach me about marketing my business on Instagram, I'm expecting that she's going to be talking about marketing my business on Instagram and not about puppies or politics, right? So that's the sameness. And that helps you develop trust within the community. So you're setting expectation, you're conditioning your audience, and you're ensuring traffic to your posts. Because if your audience know that you post a video on YouTube every Monday and every Thursday, they're going to come back on a Monday and a Thursday. They're going to set their notifications so they come back on a Monday or a Thursday to watch your videos. Or if it is that you go live on Facebook or Twitter every Wednesday, you do your live spaces sessions every Wednesday, they're going to know that Wednesday is your day. So this is the content that they should be interacting with on that day. So that's the conditioning, and that's ensuring traffic to your content. And of course, that will expand your reach. And the last one, guys, before we go to our guest, is reputation management. Social media marketing requires open communication and a level of transparency that may open brands up to scrutiny, which may lead to reputational harm that's real or imagined. And so here you have an example of Ringling Brothers. Now, Ringling Brothers, this is a circus that has been around since Wappy Philo, let's say. But in recent decades, years, they've been having problems because they tend to use a lot of animals in their circus act. And again, because of social media and people having their special interests and interest in animal rights and all that good stuff, and these animal rights activists have been able to build a very powerful, very large following on these platforms that they can bring to bear on a company, to force a company to change how they operate. And that's exactly what happened with Ringling Brothers, right? And so after years of operating, they went out of business one time because lobby pressure from animal rights activists reached them. And then they came back and said, all right, then we're not going to use as many animals. And animal rights activists was like, no animals. And so they went back again and said, okay, no animals, right? And so this is how the social media was used to kind of force this 100-odd-year-old company to kind of change how they operate, right? To satisfy a new audience, a new market, new consumers, right? And so reputation management is important, especially on social media platforms, because in a lot of times, once you lose that reputation, it's very hard to get it back, because a loss of reputation can mean a loss of trust, a loss of loyalty, and those things were hard fought. You fought real hard to get those things, and when you lose them, it can be very hard to get them back, because people are like, okay, so you've broken my trust. I no longer trust that you're going to do the things that you say you're going to do. And so I'm not going to mess with you anymore. And this is how people think on social media. You have to understand, as I keep saying, it's a highly emotional thing. People are highly emotional. They view brands and businesses almost like people now, right? And so if me and you're a friend, right, and you do me something I like, right, it's going to pose a problem. And it's the same thing with brands and businesses using social media platforms. That's not an invitation to avoid using social media platforms. It just means that you have to make sure that you have a plan as to how you're going to use these platforms and how you're going to address any controversy or any negative feedback that actually comes up while you're using these social media platforms. You have to have a plan of action. The way you respond, the tone you use, the words you use, the time you take to respond, all of that is going to affect your reputation. How you talk on social media. I hear, some of you guys saying if it's now a trend where people are provocative on social media, they use swear words, etc. I don't necessarily think it's provocative. I think it's what they can get away with as a brand, right? But certainly, if other brands should take that on, it will cause reputational harm because one, this doesn't fit. This is not a fit with your brand. Why are you talking like this? It's not a fit with your brand, and two, it's just not what somebody would have expected from from particular brands. And so, while some brands can get away with some things, not every brand can get away with that. And so, it is important that you understand what your limitations are, right? So you can brush up against those limitations but not cross them, because then you're gonna get people cross, angry, and miserable, and that's not a good thing on social media, right? I used to talk about cancel culture a lot. I don't think I believe in cancel culture anymore. I think only some people can be canceled. All right, guys, so I'm gonna stop sharing here because I think my guest is here. Inspector Mitchell, are you here?
Yes, ma'am, I'm right here.
Hi, how are you? Good morning.
I'm doing great. Good morning to you and good morning to your participants online.
All right. So before you go, I'm going to I see two questions in the Q&A. Dana says, I often hear the comment that you should put your price on your IG social media, but I notice as I position myself as a luxury brand that luxury brands do not. What are your thoughts on this? As I said, there's some things that a brand can get away with that you yourself may not be able to get away with. So it depends on, I don't think luxury brand don't put their price because for any particular reason. I just think it may not be feasible for them to put a price on their social media platforms because the price may differ depending on where you are. So if you're in France, the price is different from if you're in the USA, the price is different. And I think that's probably one of the main reasons why they don't do it. Of course, and somebody said rich people don't ask price. So there you go. Okay. All right, so Dana, I'm gonna read through your question and answer you offline with that one. Let me go to the comments. Okay. All right, guys. So we have with us here this morning, and I know you guys are excited as I am, Inspector Sean J. Mitchell. He's the head of digital marketing and social media at the Jamaica Constabulary Force. Inspector Mitchell, I hope you don't mind. I took your bio from off your LinkedIn page. It says that Inspector Mitchell is an experienced digital content manager and strong media and communication professional with a bachelor's degree focused on integrated marketing communication and a diploma in media and communication with a specialization in print and online journalism from the University of the West Indies, Mona. And that should tell you guys that he's very well qualified to do what he's doing and to talk to us today about social media. Inspector Mitchell.
Hi, morning.
Morning again. Are you ready to go?
Yes, I am ready to go.
All right.
Camera.
Are you gonna be sharing our presentation?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I think you should be able to do so now. Guys, let's welcome Inspector Mitchell.
Let me see if I can turn on my camera. No. The host has stopped me. I wonder who the host is.
Okay, I think I have to. I made you co-host so you can turn on your camera.
All right. I just want the participants to see who they're talking to. Yes. So good morning and thanks for having me. I'm already seeing comments in the chat there.
Yes. So all questions, guys, should be added to the Q&A.
Right. So I'm going to be sharing screen quickly. And I'm just going to go through some of the strategies that we have used here at the Jamaica Constabulary Force to reach our audience and to get some good feedback and some good traction from the public. I've been listening to the conversation just now about some things you wouldn't expect from some brands. And I'm pretty sure that some of our campaigns the JCF has done were not expected, right? So yes, they weren't expected, but we, as I love to call it, we towed the line, and it worked. No, in this business, you have to be prepared to take risks, but take calculated risks. So you look at what you have before you, you look at what works for you, and you make a decision based on data, make a decision based on feedback from other people, and that is what you use to make a determination as to whether or not you're going to go ahead with a particular post on social media or a particular line of content. So let me just share my screen quickly so you can see what I am talking about. Hold on, let me fix up my PowerPoint screen. All right, 1, 2, 3, yeah. All right, so is my screen being seen?
Yes, your screen is up now.
That's good. Right, so this business of social media has been a big thing for the Jamaican Constabulary Force for quite some time. So back in 2010, when I was a much more junior rank, I implored upon my supervisors to create a Facebook account. I know I said Facebook because Facebook was the in thing at the time. And I'm sure many of you young people will probably laugh at the more senior persons when them tell us that they have a Facebook account because Facebook are for old people, right? Nonetheless, at the time we decided that we're going to start a Facebook account just to get into the space because Facebook was on an upward trajectory at the time. And we decided that that would be a good platform to launch on. Several years later, I implored upon them and I decided that I'm going to venture into Instagram and Twitter. Now, we are predominantly on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube to a lesser extent, but we do have a YouTube account where we post videos. We go live on YouTube from time to time, and we have press conferences, or we have some other live event, and we do upload content to our YouTube channel as well. But importantly, we, from experience and from looking at where the market was going, that's the online market, we shifted much of our communication from traditional media. And now if you understand traditional media, you can't determine what will be carried in that space. So irrespective of the fact that you send in your press release, because remember it's public relations now, it's not paid advertisement. So you're sending a press release, and I'm talking mainly from the Jamaica Constabulary Forces end, send out a press release. A media entity or the editor will decide on what aspects of that press release they will carry. Additionally, the person who's writing the story will rewrite the story into something else and the message gets lost. No, in order for you to control, for us to control our messages and put our messages out the way we intended them to go out, we figured that having greater control of our platforms is the best avenue. So we started pushing our social media accounts. And that's how we decided to really focus on our current accounts. Now, I'm sure you've gone through this aspect of what is social media. All of us know what social media is. But outside of the the likes, the shares, the comments, and the beautiful pictures and the videos that we put up of us at parties and beaches and rivers and streams. Social media does have significant benefits. And as at October 2021, there is an estimated more than 4.5 billion active users on social media. And when you consider the world population versus those currently on social media, you'll understand that the social media space is where a lot is happening. That's where you're going to find your clients. That's where you're going to find the persons who can resonate well with your brand. That's where you'll find these people, because Jamaica has a very high internet penetration. Notwithstanding that, the fact that a lot of places in Jamaica still don't have access to internet, but everybody has a cell phone. Chances are it's a smartphone. And sometimes some people have two phones. So you want to reach people? Social media is your best bet. You're going to find them on social media, right? So these are some of the top social media sites globally. And I know I made a little joke about Facebook when I just started. But if you look, Facebook is still the leading social media platform. By leaps and bounds, Facebook is the leading social media platform. So yes, depending on what your brand is carrying, who you're targeting, because you have to decide on how you're going to segment your audience and who you're going to target and the types of messages, then you of course want to be on Facebook as well. So YouTube is followed and then you have WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, which is also used almost as a separate social media platform. And you have Instagram, WhatsApp, and TikTok. And TikTok, that kind of blew up over the period of the pandemic. Because a lot of us, like myself, I had TikTok on my phone, but I never really used it. I never even logged into it, because of, some skepticism about using the platform. But it blew up when people were locked in their houses, can't go outside, and you had nothing to do. So people went on TikTok and they started dancing. And so the dancing revolution started on TikTok during the pandemic. QQ is a social media platform based in India. It's essentially TikTok, but it's for Indians. Douyin is another social media platform. I think that one is out of China. And Sina Weibo is also one of those from one of those East Asian countries. But those are the top social media sites based on current estimates. So just a little more background. The Jamaica Constabulary Force operates on 7 strategic priorities. And I'm giving you this background just to give you a context as to why we do what we do. Our social media posts are not a run-of-the-mill. Every single post is strategic. It's aligned to a strategic objective. So we operate on 7 strategic priorities. And the 7th priority is improving communication and public engagement. That's one of our priorities. But in addition to that, this priority is essentially what I'd call a supporting priority, where it supports crime reduction and control as our #1 strategic priority. It supports improvement in public safety and citizen security. It supports enhancing staff welfare. It supports organizational restructuring. It supports professional standards. So our communication program or package is not of a whim. So we link everything to our strategic priorities, and that's how we decide and determine the type of content we're going to be using and the type of engagement we want to get from that content. So the JCF uses what we call information operations. And information operation is quite simple. It's using information to influence persons. And you're talking about influence operations. So you want to influence people, you want a shift in behavior, you want more interaction, you want to build trust. So we use the concept of information operations, or we operationalize information. As a matter of fact, information is so, it's so versatile that you can weaponize information. And I'll give you an example. The war currently happening now in Ukraine versus Russia. There is a lot of information ops taking place, or weaponization of information. And I'll give you an example now. So Ukraine says they have killed approximately 15,000 Russian troops. Russia counters and says, we have killed 30,000 Ukrainian troops, and only 5,000 of our troops have been killed in battle so far. Ukraine counters and says Russia has been bombing civilians and killing random people in the streets. Russia counters and says, no, these were armed civilians who were firing at our soldiers and we had to respond. And if you get the concept of information operations, so you use the concept of information ops to diminish your competitor. So this concept is used by militaries, it's really a military term, but it's really about influencing. So Ukraine wants to influence the world to come on their side, support their campaign in defending themselves against Russia. And they use that now to appeal to the psyche of people, the emotions, because really and truly you want a kind of an emotional rather than a rational response. No, when you're designing your campaigns, what kind of response do you want? Do you want people to have an emotional response or a rational response to what you are designing? So outside of information operations, we look at social marketing. And the concept of social marketing is behavior change. Note, not social media marketing, but social marketing, which is behavior change. You want to change some behavior. Which behavior the JCF is trying to change? Inform of dead. That has been a part of the culture since 1970s all the way up to now, where Jamaicans believe that if you are informer, you're dead. And that has been made very popular in our music, in our regular day-to-day dealings with each other. And once somebody shares information about something that they know, we call them an informer. An informer must dead. No, these social media campaigns are being designed to normalize the sharing of information. It must be second nature. The quickest, if you see something happening in your community, the first thing you should think, 311, let me call crime stop. So that's the concept behind the campaigns. We are killing the informer for dead, if you will, culture. And that type of culture, as I said, it's been a part of the Jamaican context for a long time. Now, on the screen, you will see a few of the posts that we've made on our social media platforms. And a lot of them went extremely viral. So we asked the question, if you know anything about gunman shifts. And immediately, and let me give you a background about this. This particular one, I designed most of these because I also do graphic design. And I went to my commander and I asked, showed her the post and I said, what do you get from this? And she says to me, why am I gonna get it? I said, all right. I went to another person, a senior person again. And I showed her and said, what do you get from this? And said, no, I'm gonna get it. I laughed and I said, that's because you are not my target audience. Not every piece of content that I design, or the team designs rather, is for everybody. So you know what I did? I asked him to walk with me, and I went inside of the office space and I went to two of the younger persons. I said, yo, look at this, what do you get from it? And immediately bursted out laughing. And I was like, there you go. Not everything that is designed for everybody. So you must know how you're segmenting your audience. And as I said, everything is strategic in nature. Who are the main perpetrators of violence in our country? Who are the main victims of violence in our country? Who are the persons who are more likely to be involved in criminal activities? Younger people. So when you segment the campaign using pop culture, lines from popular songs, or regular jargons that people use every day in everyday language, you're appealing to a certain segment of the audience. Notwithstanding that, you have some senior people who will understand readily that this is what he meant and this is what it means. So now, what do you know about gunman shifts? It's a simple question taken from the line of a song. We kind of change up the words a little bit, but you get the picture. And if you know that gunmen are in your community between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. and then on street, then upon 4th Street on Wednesdays, and then upon 6th Street on Thursdays. Those are the shifts, they're operating on shifts. It's a shift system. So it's not something that we just pull out of a hat. This is what our intel is saying to us, that these guys, them are lock the ends between X and Y time, X and Y nights, and that's why we want you to tell us about these shifts. No, Crime Stop is quite easy to remember. 311. So on all of our posts, there's a call to action. And when you're designing your campaigns for on social media, you must include a call to action. Know that you've laughed, know that you've interacted with the content, know that you've shared the content with your friends and everybody's having a laugh, and know everybody's running over to JCF's account because JCF is them carry some nice content where every day they give me a little laugh. But there's a call to action. There is in fact a call to action. So you need to create a call to action. The end of the post, if it's possible, embed it in the graphic itself or the video that you're using. Say, call XX, whatever the number is, for more information. Interested in our product? Call us at X and Y. So there's always a call to action so people remember. So your presenter just now spoke about being consistent. So you put your call to action consistently in your posts, and then you'll see some changes. So we have seen increased engagement through creative content design. And I say creative content design because if you just look at these 4 that I have on the screen here, we tend to limit the amount of text on the post itself. We try to use bold text, so it's easy to remember. So you look at it, you're like, all right, it's the gate fly. What does the JCF talk? What did JCF talk about the gate fly? So, and this particular one, this was done minutes after the Prime Minister had announced that the COVID restrictions would be ending. Minutes. So I was in office listening to PBC, and he made the announcement, and I'm like, how can I jump on this bandwagon right away? And I sat down and I came up and I said, I remember everybody, I said, boy, the gate fly, the gate fly, the gate fly. It's like, all right. So that's a term that's being used. People are repeat it. So it's something that resonates with people. I was like, all right, cool. So I designed it, came up with the concept. And if you notice, I use a lot of dark background or dark images because you want to remain consistent throughout. So people see this, they know it's JCF you're talking about. So we tend to use the same text, the same dark image throughout. the content designs. And so the gate flies. So I say, what we can do? Give up the gunmen and breath in peace. Everybody say, yes. So this post, as I said, was done minutes after the Prime Minister made the announcement, and it went viral. It was like within an hour, we had almost 5,000 interactions with that one post on Instagram, and over 1,000 plus shares and retweets on Twitter. Facebook had about roughly about 2,000 interactions with that post. And so you have to look at what's happening on the ground. There'll always be something happening. Look at what's happening on the ground, and then you design your post around what's happening, especially something that's happening now. You want to jump on it. So yes, Will Smith boxed on Chris Rock. How can you use that? Flip it in a positive way and drop it on your brand. Again, the lecturer spoke about not everything is a fit for every single brand. So you must know what you can do with your brand. So you jump on that, you get it out there as quickly as possible, and then you watch magic work. Right. So over the period of the campaign push that we started at the end, well, midway February, we use a lot of pop culture, a lot of cynicism, a lot of piercing type content because social media, as I said, you have hundreds of thousands of Jamaicans online every single day at any given time, right? And everybody's posting. There's content going up from different entities. You're competing for eyes. You're competing for attention. So what is it that you're going to do to push through that noise on social media? So there's this big old clutter of noise and chatter here and chatter there. What are you going to do to push through? You need to cut through all of that so that people see your content. They'll click on your account. They'll click on your website link because you pushed through the content. Now this one, things you should give up for Lent. So the team sat down and they're like, it's Lent. We tend to give up things for Lent. We've done a similar Lent campaign in yesteryears, probably about 5-6 years ago. And we just decided to go ahead with designing something that is relevant to what's happening now in the space. It's Lent, right? And we just say, oh, give up the scammer living in your house, the rifle in your backyard, or the wanted men in your community. Very straightforward. Again, we use dark images. We use purple in this particular one because Lent tends to have a lot of purple in it. So a little purple in there, and of course a crucifix. And I won't even go into some controversy that a particular post caused with the use of a crucifix. But you have to be prepared to take some lick. Not everybody will like your content. Not everybody's going to appreciate your content. But again, look at what your brand represents and how you can flip that particular piece of content online to your benefit without offending too many people. All right. So to your right, you have the WAP, WAP, WAP. Again, this was designed, tested it with senior managers, and I tested it with persons lower down in the organization. And senior managers are like, what is it you're talking about? And then I remember one person said to me, is this the Cardi B song about WAP? I said, no, that's not it. That's not it at all. So pulled up the Skillibeng song and I say, oh, listen to this. It's like, okay, I get it. It's all right. Again, you are not part of my target audience. My target audience is young people and we are both going on a fire AK. They know the sound of the WAP, WAP, WAP. So they are part of my target audience. The one beside that, and again, let's just focus in on this one right here. Wanted Wednesdays. So we designed Wanted Wednesdays in April of last year. And the Wanted Wednesdays campaign has been extremely successful. We have listed almost 150 different wanted men on Wanted Wednesdays. And I remember when the campaign just started and same graphic we have here, we used, or remain consistent with the graphic for Wanted Wednesdays. And I remember the laughter online and everybody, I said, yo, this come like Uptown Mondays or Weddy Wednesdays or some party type thing. And immediately sat down with the team and I said, yes, that's the reaction that we expected. Yeah, we want people to associate it with something popular that's happening. So Wanted Wednesdays. So every Wednesday, without fail, we have a post on wanted men, either captured or wanted on Wanted Wednesdays, every Wednesday. Now this post, and there's something else I want to tell you about. When you're writing your captions, try and be creative in your captions. Because a lot of these posts, by themselves, you won't readily get it. While a few people will automatically cling to it and get it right out just by the post. Generally speaking, the captions is what we use to sell the post. So you have to be creative in your thinking, creative in your writing to get people to remember your posts. And of course, the boy Joseph no easy. Who will write them caption? Well, no one know, but tell nobody say. But the captions are important. So this one on Wanted Wednesdays, I remember writing this caption. This guy was black, then he was white, and then he was brown. And the caption says, whether black, white, or brown, in JCF I go find you. Right? And I remember the laughter that it caused online because I don't know if you know the song, Red or Yellow, Black and White, they are precious in inside, that type of song. You know, a children's song, but that was the thinking at the time because this man started off as a dark-skinned man, then him bleach out and turn white, and then him get brown. But it's the same person, one person. And the caption went on to say, yes, this is Richard Bob Higgins. We're not looking at three different people. It's the same person. That was also in the caption. So you have to look at how you write the captions. Further down, International Siblings Day. So now we look at how these international celebrated days are done. So certainly we're going to have something for Mother's Day. We're going to have something for Teachers' Day. We're going to have something for Children's Day. Right? So you can look out for them. We're going to have something. So you find a way to get people interested in your content based on what is happening on that particular day. So International Siblings Day. I said, how can I capitalize on this? And again, I don't have a copy of my content schedule here, but our content schedule is used. So we look at the calendar events, we create a content schedule, we design the artwork, sometimes a month in advance, and we schedule them in our content schedule. But what we have to do is look at what's happening now, because sometimes you might have a scheduled post to go out at 5, say on the 28th of May, but something else happens that day. So for example, there's a national disaster and you come out to sell jewelry because you had that scheduled. You have to look at what's happening because it wouldn't be okay for you to tell people to come buy your necklace and your chain when people roof blow off or there's some other national disaster. You have to pull that post. You have to be mindful of what you have scheduled out. Look at it, take it down, and post it. Because people are going to come at your brand. You're going to be insensitive. So while we have the schedule, we still have to look at what's happening now. So International Siblings Day. Let's say, all right, enough people know about Avengers. Enough people know what did happen with Thanos and his daughter, sacrifice her. I'm say, all right, cool. Sometimes you have to sacrifice people out of love. Yes, your brother or somebody in your family, they are giving problems. And a lot of people, a lot of families end up losing their loved ones because of that. A mother gets killed because a son is involved in crime. A brother gets killed because a younger brother involved in crime. And instead of calling Crime Stop or calling the police and say, oh, take him out, please, can't lock him up. It's safer for a prisoner and me safer when they're in prison. So we use International Siblings Day. And of course, many of you would remember how viral this one went as well. I think this was one of the most viral posts that we put out. Again, these are just some samples of some of what we did. And I'm not sure if I'm sharing audio, but I'm going to play the video nonetheless. This particular video, when we posted it on Valentine's Day.
Some may prefer chocolates and roses for this Valentine, but we are into law and order. Celebrate love better this year by giving up the criminals in your community. We know you know them.
Hello, is it me you're looking for?
Let's lessen our violent experiences, live our values every day, and leave out violence every time. It's time for love. Some may
So
prefer
I'm not sure if you're hearing the audio, but
We can hear the audio.
oh, you heard it. Good, good. Awesome. Right. So this particular video was a catalyst on Valentine's Day. To be honest, I shot this video last year and I wanted to use it for Valentine's Day last year. And after it was shot, it took me some time to go through the edits, make some suggestions. And then it got late in the day. I was like, all right, I'm about to post it down. I just keep that in file 13. So kept it. Valentine's Day this year. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try my luck with that video. And I'm going to try my luck. So I went to my commander again. I said to her, look, watch this video. What do you think about that? She said, boy, look a little ranch. She's still in it. So I'm going to go around the room and I shared it with other people. And then my director came and she said, you know what? I like it. From last year with it, just upload it. If anything, with a lick feet. And I just said, all right, say no more. Because, you know, came up with a concept, I designed it, had the team shoot it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go with it. So I put it out there. And man, oh man, this took off like it had a mind of its own. And I remember how people were like, no, sir, JC, I don't want to look a bit too close. But for the most part, when we look through the comments, there are a lot of comments, both, well, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, there are a lot of comments. I read through the comments. Qualitatively, the comments were extremely positive. A lot of kudos for stepping outside of the box. Now, this is not something that you'd expect from a police organization. Tell the truth. You wouldn't expect this from no police organization across the world. But guess what? The Jamaica Constabulary Force did that. We did that. The only organization, as far as I can recall, and as far as my research goes, that actually did something like this, actually step outside of the box. You know, so don't limit your thinking to a box. Yes, there are parameters, and then your brand represents this and your brand represents that. But think outside of the box. Toe the line sometimes. Take risks. You must be willing to take a risk, you know. If it works, it works. If it don't work, it just don't work. Unfortunately, in the social media space, sometimes your brand can take a big hit and it don't recover for a long time. But you must be willing to take risks. And again, test your campaigns. If it's something that you think is going to be controversial, test the campaign. Test it with other people. Find a group of friends and test the campaign with them. Bring some people in our local room and show them the campaign and say, well, this is what we have planned for the campaign. Tell us what you think about it. Get your approvals and then go ahead with it. So yes, give us the wanted men. This was a part of the Silhouette Challenge last year. I remember that was big on TikTok last year, silhouette challenge. So I figured that we could do something that that's quite similar to the silhouette challenge. See, I'm like a red room backlight. It's kind of sexy. But at the end of the day, it's just a policewoman walking down with a handcuff in her hand. There's no alterations. There's nothing that she did to her body. It's just a regular policewoman walking down a hallway, put a filter over the image, and we just put in the music in the back. And that put the campaign out there. So, right. So outside of the laughs and the giggles and all of that, you must remember why you are doing what you're doing. So there was an overall 97% increase in tips to Crime Stop as at April 31st. No, not April, March 31st rather. I haven't got the latest stats yet. As at March 31st, there was an overall 97% increase in calls to Crime Stop. And people are calling about guns, gunmen, and gangs. What have we been asking people to call in about? Guns, gunmen, and gangs. So when you look at it, there's a direct correlation between what we are asking people to do and what people are doing. So now this is your quantitative analysis coming in. So quantitatively, we can say the campaigns have been very successful. No. So the KPIs, key performance indicators, says 97% increase in cost of Crime Stop. But what else have we seen? And now the intended outcomes. We have recovered almost twice as many firearms this year compared with last year. Now, can you look and say that's a direct correlation to these campaigns? I don't know. You tell me. So we're asking people to call in about the riot in our people's backyard. And bear in mind, there is, in fact, a reward scheme in place for information, not for the gun. I'm just clear that up. It's not another gun you sell with. It's information leading to the recovery of the firearm. So you get paid for the information that you share, right? So there's a direct correlation to say that we have been asking our followers to share information on the guns, particularly rifles. And this year we've seized 100% more rifles than last year. Twice as many rifles this year than what we seized last year. No, again, you tell me, is there a direct correlation to these campaigns? Again, outside of the laughs and the giggles and the shares and the engagements online, the intended outcomes of the Jamaica Constabulary Force have been met. And I did start off this presentation by saying that we operate on 7 strategic priorities. And the 7 strategic priorities includes the primary one, crime reduction and control. And in order to reduce crime, given the fact that firearms are mostly used in the commission of a crime in Jamaica, especially murders, and we seize more firearms this year than last year. And our campaigns are showing that point of inflection, meaning where we started to see an uptick in tips and uptick in the number of seizures, started around about the time when the campaign started. So don't ever discount the value of information sharing online or the value of social media, the value of online media. Don't ever discount it, because you can look at the key performance indicators and you can look at your intended outcomes. Are they being met? If the answer to that question is yes, continue to work along the same line. Maybe further on in the campaign, we might have a redesigning or a reintegration, and we might push it from another level, but it's a similar type campaign that will continue. Over 200% engagement with the content on the JCF pages. So between January and up to this weekend, the JCF's Instagram account has has grown by about 40,000+ new followers. A very short span of time. And we've grown our account. Twitter has well over 100,000 people following us on Twitter. And when we started the year, we had 75,000 people who started the year with on Twitter. And now we have over 100,000. Facebook, similarly, we've grown over 20 or 30,000 on Facebook as well. So now this shows that qualitatively, there's more support for the police because the calls are coming in. 2, there is more seizures in firearms. 3, there is an overall reduction in major crimes. Unfortunately, for the month of March, there was a slight uptick in murders at 0.6%. But it's something that we are going to arrest. Yes, I'm using arrest and bring it back down in this month. Because when you do the comparative period, it's difficult to compare when you have a low month last year versus a high month this year. So we're going to arrest that and bring it back down because we started the year low. So it shows the effectiveness of these campaigns. It's not just about laughs and giggles and chats. Right, so again, I mentioned there's more support for the police, right? There's greater public involvement and more people. Over the weekend, I met with a group of persons, and one gentleman said, I started following the JCF campaign right about in JCF's pages in February, right around the point when these types of campaigns started. And I laughed, and I was like, yes. Because he said ordinarily he would not have been following the Jamaica Constabulary Force. And no, this particular post was the controversial post that we got some pushback from some persons in the ministerial fraternity about the use of the crucifix. And there was just some pushback, and the JCF's campaigns are not intended to offend anybody. But as I mentioned earlier, not every piece of content that we post is for every single person. If it does not resonate with you, chances are you were not a part of the target audience, right? No, I put this here because when the controversy started, it was, I think the Jamaica Observer carried it and Jamaica Gleaner had carried it, just like the images here. They had it on their front pages with the comments from the pastors. But when you read the actual commentary online from our followers, they were like, yo, I'm gonna leave the JCF alone. So you know what that means? The JCF has built up sufficient capital in the bank that we can afford to spend a little. That's what it is. We've gotten the support of our followers and citizens that when somebody comes after the JCF, we don't have to defend ourselves anymore. People are jumping in to defend us because people are saying, look, over the years, we've not heard from this group, and now as soon as something is happening, we are hearing from you. We don't need to follow the JCF, them will work, them will get the job done. That's what's been happening, and that's a positive. When you can get people to defend your brand, put them neck on the block and defend your brand, you know you're hitting some positive things. No, this also means information mining. A lot of information is in the comments. So some people may readily post information in the comments about, some actually know somebody with a rifle or may have some other more report. And it's in the comments. They might be using a pseudo account, or they might send us information in our inbox. While we prefer that you use Crime Stop, because if the information is valid, valuable, and you can use it, and you recover a firearm or lock up somebody, you can get a reward. And interestingly, most people who call in are not interested in getting a reward. They just want to get the criminals out of their communities. People want to live in peace. They want to have freedom to move about. So they're calling about the information, but they're not collecting the rewards. They're not interested in it. So information mining. So when you have information coming in on your social media account, you need to mine that information now. It will tell you what your customers want. but to tell you what is working for you, what is not working, and how you can respond. So that's how you use that information that comes into you. And again, we've built greater confidence in the police. Greater confidence. So it's a small team, a social media team, but it's a team with a big punch. So we have a big platform. Platform is growing, and we are resonating well with this type of audience. So we are building confidence in the police. Right now, every corner you go up and everybody talk about the JCF social media accounts. Right, just about wrapping up now. So there is challenges associated with social media utilization for the police force. And some of these challenges include, as I said, not everything will resonate with everybody, but you have to use that now to design your content so that you do not offend too many people too many times. But at the end of the day, we have a responsibility to the Jamaican citizens. We have a responsibility to protect our people, and that we will do. So we're using all the tools in the toolbox. Outside of everyday active policing, we are using social media. And I think, this is my personal view, that this is one of the big ticket items to help solve crime in Jamaica because of the value that it brings and the fact that you can get so much information and you can build confidence using these platforms, and people will be more willing to share information with the police because the constabulary force cannot solve crimes by themselves. You, the citizens, have to be willing participants. You must be able to share information, give statements, come to court, whatever it is. But in order for that to happen, you must have confidence in your police force. And that's what we're trying to build. You must have confidence that sharing information, that means say you go dead because informers are not dead anymore. We have to make sure the informers live. And it must be second nature that you share information with your police force. So we asked, are there training programs specifically designed for law enforcement? Yes. So as it is now, I am also a trained social media investigator, meaning I have gone to the Miami-Dade Police College where I studied use of social media in investigations, where you can literally go through your social media accounts. And this is open source information in a Hack Nobody account. People post things. And let me tell you, a criminal might not be posting on his personal account. But let me use a guy, for example. A guy have a girlfriend, and girlfriend love to take pictures, she'll post. And she's going to make the mistake one day and post a picture of him. And that's how it works. So people are always online. Information is going to and fro. So instead of tracking the person that you actually want, you find a family member. You find a distant cousin or a distant friend. And you track that person because essentially, one of them time they might have a link up and a post of a make. And boom. Right, so that about ends my presentation. I think I'm still within the hour. And thank you very much. I see some questions lining up there. Over to you, Ms. Francis.
All right, that was awesome. Way more than I would have asked for. Really appreciate it, Inspector Mitchell. I appreciate you going through the pros and the cons bit by bit, because we do have some questions here, leaning on both sides. What is the ultimate goal of the campaign? Is it to generate chatter in the social media space to appear hip and current, or to actually garner information to catch criminals? What's the goal, Inspector Mitchell?
Right, I think that was answered later on.
Yes, it was, but can you?
Just to reiterate,
Yes.
the ultimate goal of this particular campaign is to, one, result in crime reduction and control. That's our number one strategic priority. So one, we want to get information about the whereabouts of guns, gunmen, and gangs. Then we want to use that information now to remove the gunmen and the gang from your communities, which will ultimately result in crime reduction and control. It is also a big means of killing. I'm going to use another term. It's a means of arresting the inform of the dead culture. It's a big culture in Jamaica. We're trying to stop or intercede so that people will find it easier to share information and make it second nature. So that's the ultimate goal of the campaign.
And guys, we know how powerful social media, the role social media plays in reshaping culture, and so I think that's what Inspector Mitchell is saying. Somebody asked if your content is effective. I'd say, given the data. You mentioned pop culture references and special calendar days. Can you give insight into the development and the brainstorming during the content creation process?
Right. So the team of persons at the department, we look at like the big calendar days for the year, and we look at some of the things that we believe that we can hop onto. That's not everything that we're not gonna be on every single big international day. So the brainstorming process, it starts from simple mind mapping, where we schedule meetings, we have our weekly planning meetings, and people come to those meetings with ideas about how we can improve or what's the next big post. So right now, the strategy is we're working on the inform of the dead. So that's a big overarching goal. And then now down the line, now we narrow it down to get more and more granular in terms of what we do. So that's what we use to guide it. So if you're talking about giving up your rifles, we're talking about capturing wanted persons, we're talking about arresting gunmen and scammers and the like. So we design the campaign, the content around that. What has been working? Pop culture. The pop culture bit. That's what has been working. And I see a lot of other corporate entities jumping onto this pop culture thing now.
Yes.
In the posts.
But Inspector Mitchell, can you just go a little bit more into, because you said right now, the goal is to dead the inform of the dead culture, which I suspect has been one of the biggest obstacles for the JCF in tackling the whole crime problem. Can you go a little more into why that is such a major focus for the JCF? Because I think if people understand why this is such a big issue for the JCF, the campaigns will make more sense to them.
Right. So, inform of the dead, as I said, it's something that started way back from in the 70s, 80s. It got even more popular in the 90s. It transitioned back into the new millennium. And what has been happening? People are so intertwined in that culture that even if them see something happening in the neighbor house, them don't want to talk about it because big man and an informer. So it's embedded in their psyche because yes, sir, me and an informer, me not say nothing about it. Even though it will likely affect you at some point. Because if your house is broken into, you'd want somebody to tell you, I will broke in your house, right? So what we're trying to do is normalize people sharing information with the police. It should be, as I said, second nature. Something is happening, and I'll give you an example. In the United States, what makes their policing or what makes it so successful in those countries is that people call the police for everything.
Everything.
Call the police because people are afraid to give information, and them are come to court if they need to come to court.
Right. Inspector Mitchell, can you just talk briefly too about why it's important to gain the trust and the confidence of the public in order to combat that cultural the inform of the dead culture? Why is it important that the JCF actually gets the public back, I will say, not back, well, get the public on their side and build that trust and relationship with the public, and why that's important to combat the
Right.
culture.
So there is nothing, law enforcement does not happen in a vacuum. It's not something that happens by itself, but rather law enforcement is a collective effort of citizen policing and at the ultimate end, the judiciary. So starting from citizens, we need to get your support. But if you don't trust me want your support, but you don't trust me, it's highly unlikely that you're going to want to share information with us. And that's what we have been trying to build and open up ourselves so that people can trust us. Yes, at the same young people that are hip and hype and trendy and manage a social media account. It's the same, we understand the language of the day. We understand what you are, what resonates with you. And it helps now to bridge that gap between us and them, because it's not us and them, it's all of us. Because over the years, you have this concept, say, boy, squatted them over this and we over here. So, no, all of us are in this together. Bearing in mind that squatted them are people just like you. There are people who have kids that go to school just like you. There are people who have other businesses just like you. And because of that now, we want you to be a part of this process. And in order for you to be a part of this process, you must trust your police. And we're trying to bridge that gap. And I dare say that we have seen a turn. People are sharing information with us. As mentioned, Crime Stop has seen a 97% increase. And if you're somebody that follows the numbers and look at statistics, that's a massive increase
Massive.
in terms of the number of people calling into Crime Stop.
Right. Inspector Mitchell, would you say, because you talked about bridging the gap in class earlier, we talked about how you can use social media to tell stories, to get a message out, and to create a new narrative or create your own narrative. Now, if you understand the history of the JCF, in fact, if you understand the history of policing in Jamaica, you'll understand that it has always been a combative history between law enforcement and the people because of trust issues coming from post independence, right? And so Inspector Mitchell talked about bridging that gap. Now imagine how social media has become the medium through which the JCF, being this established institution, understanding the relationship between them and the public, and then using this modern communication channel to try and I think it's a very massive effort to overcome decades of historical distrust between the people and the establishment. And I think that is what you're talking about, right, Inspector Mitchell?
Yes,
Right.
sir.
So you're using culture, pop culture, and trends to bridge the gap, as Inspector Mitchell says, because there's a new audience on these social media platforms, which is the generation, my generation, millennials, and then Gen Zers, and these are the people who you're trying to shape their perspective on how they feel about the establishment, the government, law enforcement, etc. And so you reach them where they are, which is on social media, right, guys? And not only do you reach them where they are, you talk the way they talk, you communicate the way they communicate, in order to get through to them. Because if you are trying to use language that they don't understand, relate to, care about, you're not going to reach them. You're really not going to reach them. Now, there's something to be said for gimmicks, and there's something to be said for the trends and popular trends. Is it to get attention? Of course you want the attention, but then that is how you captivate people. You grab their attention, and then while grabbing their attention, you are putting a message out that may be very subliminal, but in this case it's not very subliminal, but you're grabbing the attention to get the message across, to force that message or to force them to confront that message. And I think that's one of the reasons also why it is working. Now somebody said something about, somebody said there are some victims of crime, Inspector Mitchell, who may not appreciate the approach because it's seen as a mockery. Is that a criticism that you often get?
Can you repeat that question? Let me just watch it.
A question was asked about, are you really getting information? Because there are people who have been victims of crime who they see this campaign as like a form of mockery, or the JCF not taking that seriously. Is that a criticism that you get often?
Not at all. Well, not from my end. I haven't seen anything or much of that type of chatter from my end. But I do take the point. There has been some bad blood over the years with the constabulary and some members of some communities. And of course, we understand that. So now we're making an effort to not only bridge this gap, but to create quality standards for our members to react to people, or how our members treat people, just basic quality standards. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but the JCF is now ISO 9001 certified, meaning this is an international certification where there are quality management standards that have been established, and our organization is moving towards a much more integral or a much more integrated part of the Jamaican culture, where we can not only bridge that gap, but of course allow people to feel safe coming to the police.
Okay. Guys, do we have any more questions? I see some questions. Here's one, Inspector. Was it hard to get the elders in the JCF on board with this type of message or communication? And because the person, they always wondered what it was like for you to have that conversation with the bigger heads as a younger person, to go, listen, I think this would work, and they're going, I don't know about that. How did you get them around to your point of view about the use of social media in fighting crime?
Well, initially, over the years, it was an uphill battle. So oftentimes you create a piece of content, you design the artwork, beautiful artwork, and you try to get it approved, and somebody says, nope, this is not what the JCF stands for, it's not going to happen. Take it down, or you might put up something, you get a call, say, oh, take it down right away, without any explanation, because it's a rank-based organization. So you take instructions from higher up, and you have to carry out those instructions. But notwithstanding that, when we re-engaged, and I believe because of the transition, we have a lot more younger persons moving up in ranks, a lot more persons from our era, and we have some younger persons coming in the organization. Now, you have to create a space for those people. They see the bigger picture, bearing in mind that in another 20 years or so, the fad might not be about social media, it might be about Web 3.0, where everybody is into their virtual space and their virtual world, and everything is happening in Web 3.0. But notwithstanding, there is a need for this type of communication. So we had that discussion, we got some pushback, and fortunately, at my department, we have somebody who is an older person, but believes in this type of communication and the value that it brings to the law enforcement landscape and how it can help in solving crimes. Now, I see a comment about...
and of course, the numbers don't lie. The numbers are a big help.
The numbers don't lie. So when I go back to our regular meetings, I have a meeting with the commissioner every Monday. So when I go back to that meeting, I sit down and I can say, sir, these are the numbers from last week. These are some of the comments from last week. And if we do a qualitative analysis, you can see what this means. And also if you look at the quantitative analysis, you can see this is what is happening. So yes, and qualitatively, he would hear about what's happening in his circles. He'd hear people talk about it, people call him about it and say, yo, your social media team are going on a bag of things now. This is what you tell them to do, you know? But at the end of the day, we have moved away from this old organization that is so far behind or so far removed from what's happening now, that we are now at this point where, yes, we're using a lot of pop culture, a lot of hip and trendy things that are happening. And again, it's not just for the gimmicks. The
Right.
numbers don't lie. So while the gimmicks are a part of it, it grabs your attention and you're going to share that post because, boy, Jay said, give me a good laugh when I was there, right? So you laugh and boom, you share that post. Somebody who's actually interested sees it and say, "Me I call 311, you know. My tank won't full up right now." And JCF say, if you give up one rifle, me can get $500,000. So yeah, me I call Crime Stop and get my tank full up today. So that's a big part of the process.
There was something you said you wanted to address.
Yeah, I saw a comment, I think it's from Cavell, about the corruption in the constabulary force. No, as I mentioned, the JCF operates on 7 strategic priorities, and everything is addressed in these priorities. The 5th strategic priority is professional standards, accountability, and professional standards within the organization. So we have established our Inspectorate and Professional Standards Oversight Bureau, where, oh, Kabel is saying it's not her? All right. All right.
I think it was Nadisha. Yeah.
All right. So I'll get back to that then. Sorry about that, Kabel. Right. So the concept behind the Professional Standards branch is really about getting the members out of the organization who are proven to be corrupt. Once you're involved in corruption, there is a process to be followed, and we remove these members from our organization. So we're trying to build trust. So outside of that, no, we made a post over the weekend that gunmen are the biggest informers. And if anybody in here watch Politics Watch, Sir P, Sir P would probably resonate with a lot of people. Gunmen are the biggest informers, and that's not a lie. A gunman will quickly sell you out. You will try to cover for him. He will quickly sell you out to his cronies or to another gang. They talk more than the average citizen. So it's pointless trying to cover for them. You see the things happening in your community. You see the men walking through your community at night with the rifles. Crime Stop is 100% anonymous. There's no way that Crime Stop can trace back a call. You can call Crime Stop and share information. That information is passed down to police who don't know nothing about you or who made the call. All they do is get a call saying, around Block B, apartment 23, there is a man in there with a rifle, and always see a man come out with a rifle inside of that place.
All right. So one person says, are there any plans to translate this community building effort that's taking place online with actual community initiatives, in-person community initiatives?
Certainly. We still have a community safety and security branch, and these are the officers that you'll find in your communities on a regular basis. We have them as school resource officers, so they will be in your schools interacting with your kids. They'll be putting on community meetings, football matches. So we have these people in communities every single day. So nothing that we do interferes with another job that we have. So all of our functions are interconnected. Nothing is happening in a vacuum or in absence of another.
Yeah.
So go on.
So remember, guys, that Inspector Mitchell is only responsible for one arm, and that's his one of what's it called, the 7 what initiatives?
Strategic priorities.
Strategic priorities, and what he does is really only a part of one, but everything is interconnected. So if the perception around the JCF begins to change, that affects everything. that they do. Inspector Mitchell, how do you strike the balance with older audiences and younger audiences with your digital communication?
Right. First of all, we have to look at what we are trying to achieve. What is it that we're trying to achieve? So an older person would more likely be willing to call in and report something that's happening. So they are not the issue. So the younger audience, and that's why I said when you're doing your segmentation, the audience segmentation, you must look at what you're trying to achieve. So if you're selling, let me say, for an example, say I sell some Air Force Ones, you wouldn't be targeting a 50-year-old man with an Air Force One, and probably not interested in that. And probably just want a nice pair of Crocs with comfortable on him foot instead of the pretty white Air Force One. So right now, we are trying to arrest that situation of this inform of the dead, and we know who the perpetrators are, what age group they're from. We know who the victims are, what age group they're from, and we know who the persons who are committing these acts and what age group they're from. So that's where the target is. Notwithstanding that, if you go to our accounts now, you'll find posts that resonate with older audiences. So you'll find the community posts, you'll find the walkthroughs, you'll find the community policing happening on a regular basis. For example, we have the band division that goes out into communities and have pop-up clinics where they come and then set up their musical instruments and play music, and sing some old time Gregory Isaacs and some Dennis Brown. So those are things that appeal to our older audience. And it's also part of the community building, bridge building initiative. Because at the end of the day, those officers singing and dancing with the community members, they're getting information as well.
All right then, guys. Do we have any other question for Inspector Mitchell, or are we happy? Any other questions for Inspector Mitchell, guys? No. Okay. If I see one question. How do you decide what to post on which platform, Inspector Mitchell?
Okay. Right now, when we design content, so for example, you know that Instagram is really a photo sharing, no video sharing platform because of Reels. So if it's a lot of images that we have to post, then we stick with Facebook and Instagram. In terms of posting links, news-related items, something that's happening now, it's really a Twitter-based, fast-paced movement on that. Twitter has a more mature audience, if you will. I'm not sure how many persons on here are actually on Twitter, but Twitter is actually my favorite space. Yeah, that's where you have a lot of the this is for me personally. This is where you have a lot of the conversations taking place. A lot of the influencers are on Twitter. So if you want to hear something about even the recent campaign, you might find a whole thread on it on Twitter. And so when you want to target a more mature audience, you move the business over to Twitter. If you're targeting a mixture of young and old, you can target Facebook. Mostly young people, you'll find them on Instagram. And I dare say, we're moving over to TikTok, because I think TikTok is a beautiful place. I don't see a lot of businesses on TikTok. There's a lot of personal accounts on there. But if you really want to hit some music, you might want to consider jumping into TikTok. And that's where you're talking younger people now. So you're talking about from your early teens to your mid-20s. That's where you might find a lot of those people on TikTok. So you just have to look at what you're selling, how you want it to reach that person. Look at the demographics on the platforms, because you can look in the, just a quick look at the insights on your page, and you can see who's interacting, the age group of the persons interacting with your post, and then you can make a decision as to how you determine the segmentation of that audience.
All right, guys, we're gonna end it there for Inspector Mitchell. He's a very busy man. I know he has things to do, and he's stayed with us an extra half an hour over what I would have asked him to. So thank you so much, Inspector Mitchell. Really appreciate the information and you giving us some behind the scenes as to what this is all about, because it came on us suddenly. Because I first started, I was like, oh. So it kind of came on us suddenly, and certainly at first there was some mixed feelings about it. I was like, this is cool. Uh you have some more provocative posts than others, but I did appreciate the attempts the JCF is making to try and actually be interactive and to actually communicate with Jamaicans, right? So if for nothing else, I appreciated the effort in the attempt at communication and driving engagement, and then I read about the fact that that is actually having real world impact, and it was just a cherry on top of that the cake for me. So I appreciate you being here, Inspector. Appreciate, and this is an extension of that engagement, you being making yourself available to come and talk to different groups and explain what is happening, because the information that we get here, we're going to go out and we're going to share with others, because now we have a better understanding of what this is. So appreciate the JCF, appreciate you for that, Inspector Mitchell. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
All right then. All right, guys, thank you, Akilim. So about the quiz, how many of you attempted the quiz? And what was the feedback, guys? What was the feedback? How was it? I did basically get fail. Okay. All right, guys, we have 6 minutes. Let's quickly go through the quiz and see. All right, so question number 1 says, which one of these is not, and sometimes, guys, you need to pay attention to what the question is asking. You're gonna get more quiz, you're gonna get another quiz, but if you notice, the quiz was from weeks 1 to 3. Which one of these is not a digital strategy framework? The IDA model, the REAN model, the RACE model, and the Prairie model. Which one was not a digital strategy framework? Right, the Prairie model. There's no such model, at least not that I'm aware of. Okay? So that's the correct answer. The second question, which of the following is not an example of how the information has changed consumer behavior? More information, convenience, increased confidence, lower prices. How did you guys answer that one? Lower prices, right? Although there's something to be said about more competition drives prices down, but one thing I wanted you guys to focus on is what we discussed in the classes, okay? What is the main purpose of marketing? To show off your product, research, sell more, compete. What is the main purpose of marketing? To sell more, right? We can argue that these other things like showing off your product and competition is one of the purposes, but one of the main things, one of the number one reasons we market our goods and our services so we can sell more. Which one of these is not a persuasion marketing technique? Fair, rhetoric, gamification, incentive. Fair, exactly. Awesome stuff, guys. Okay. Fair. Which of the following is a digital marketing channel? YouTube, podcast, blog, Google. Google, exactly. Okay. All right. Which of the following is not a type of digital marketing? Pay-per-click, website marketing, influencer marketing, guerrilla marketing. So the question is, which of the following is not a type of digital marketing? Guerrilla marketing. Now, guerrilla marketing is a strategy, it's a marketing strategy, but it's not specifically a digital marketing strategy, okay? Which of the following is an element of a digital strategy? Advertising, ad spend, branding, collaborating. Which of the following is an element of a digital strategy? Ad spend, collaborating, advertising, branding. Advertising. Remember, the question was an element of your digital strategy. Collaboration is not necessarily an element of your digital strategy, but advertising is. Okay. What does the acronym SMART mean? Specific, memorable, articulate, timely. SEO, analytics, referral, testimonial. Strategic, marketable, aware, ROI, team, or specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Is it number 1, 2, 3, or 4? D. Okay, yes. It is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. What is not which of these is not an example of a KPI? Lead generation, email sign up, website traffic, CTA conversion. Which of the following is not an example of a KPI? Website traffic, CTA conversion, email sign up, lead generation. Lead generation, because website traffic, CTA conversion, and email signups are all lead generation activities. Okay. What are the elements of audience mapping? Geographic, psychographic, behavioral, demographic, psychographic, behavioral, or psychographic, behavioral, geographic, demographic. It's number 4. It's D. There are 4 elements of audience mapping: behavioral, geographic, psychographic, and demographic. Which is not an element of a competitor analysis? Customer sentiment, pricing, marketing, or branding. Not an element, I said. It's branding. You're not necessarily looking at how your competitors, what their brand looks like. You are wanting to know how customer feels about them, how they price their stuff, and how they're marketing their stuff. Remember, branding is a part of marketing. Okay. Which of the following is not an example of a direct competitor? McDonald's and Wendy's, Popeyes and Quick Chick, Grace Kennedy and Lasco, Tasty and KFC. Which of the following is not an example of a direct competitor? McDonald's and Wendy's, Popeyes and Quick Chick, Grace Kennedy and Lasco, Tasty and KFC. Right, so Tasty and KFC are indirect competitors, meaning they're going after the same market, but they're not necessarily selling the same product or service. Okay? Which of the following is not an element of good content? Stealable, inspirational, authoritative, distribution? Which of the following is not an element of good content? Stealable, inspirational, authoritative distribution. It's distribution, guys. That's not an element of good content. We're asking you what makes content good. And stealable is another way of saying it's copyable. It's inspirational. It establishes your authority. How you distribute is not a part of that. Okay? Although you must understand where your audience is to know where you need to share that content, right? What are the three categories of digital media? Owned, earned, promoted, paid, shared, owned, earned, paid, owned, user generated, internal, external. EPO, right? Earn, paid, owned. Okay, great. And the final is, which of these is an example of paid media? Now, this is the tricky part, and this is the part that I said that you guys can ignore a little bit, because the answer, there are two possible answers to the question. So the question is, which of these is an example of paid media? Boosted post, influencer marketing, display ad, and Google ad. Which is an example of paid media? Actually, all of them is an example of paid media. All of them. The answer I was looking for, however, was boosted post. But if you answered any one of them, I should have had a button that says all of the above, because all of them could be considered paid media. Remember, paid media is usually media that you're paying to push. So influencer marketing is a form of paid media because you're paying the influencer. Display ads, it's digital advertising, which is paid. Google ads is also digital advertising. And boosted posts. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about boosted posts was because it's social media based, and when we're talking about paid, earned, and owned media, we're really talking about social media. And so that is why I wanted you guys to talk about boosted posts. But if you answered any one of those are technically correct. Okay, so how did you guys do? Now that we've gone through the answer, how did you guys do? It wasn't so bad, was it? Guys, remember that part A of your final assessment is 40 multiple choice questions. Somebody got 15 out of 15. Okay. Good stuff. Part A of your assessment is 40 multiple choice questions. So I want to get you guys used to multiple choice questions. So I'm going to do another quiz for weeks 3, 4, and 5. So, you guys can test whether or not you are retaining information. But 13 out of 15 is actually really good. So, good stuff, guys. Good stuff. Any other issues with your assignment? I see persons asking me to clarify what I mean by primary and secondary platform. Guys, I would have said so many times that your primary platform are the main platforms that you're going to be using to push your messaging, to develop a strategy for, to do your digital marketing on. I have also said many times that, in my opinion, I think your website or your email or one of those should be your primary platforms, because you're catching on social media. So what I expect is for you guys to tell me that either an app or your website or your podcast or one of these other more stable platforms that you own, one of your owned platform, would be your primary platform, and one of your non-owned platform, like a social media platform, would be your secondary platform. Now guys, if you look in the assignment folder in the sample document, you will see a Word document. That Word document actually accompanied the spreadsheet. So when I was putting together this plan for the client, I did a spreadsheet, which is what you guys are going to be using for, or which is what you guys are using for the assignment, as well as the Word document, which really explains everything in the spreadsheet and what the strategy was. So if you guys have gone through the Word document, you would see how I separated the platforms in the Word document. Now the sample document you guys have is just I would have taken out a lot of information out of the spreadsheet that I would have sent to the client, to make it easier for you guys to read and go through. But somebody said they did not see, they only saw social media platforms. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom of that, you would see where it says Active Campaign. Active Campaign is an email platform. And so there were multiple page sheets in that document, and so the strategy was for the client to tackle different platforms at different time. And so in January to February or March, in the first 3 months, she was really building up her social media, then email, then website, etc., because we were creating that funnel for her. So I would have deleted the other sheet so you guys wouldn't have seen that. So I'm clarifying that for you guys. The only reason why you're not seeing other platforms there, because this was quarter one, and with quarter one the strategy was to set up the first part of our funnel. But I, otherwise than that, guys, I think the assignment is pretty straightforward. It's really based on you guys. Bear in mind, I am not going to tell you whether your strategy is right or wrong. That's not the point of the assignment. The point of the assignment is for you to look at this scenario and be able to build a strategy from that. Now you're going to have to justify your strategy. That's what the final presentations, the pitch, is for. You're going to have to justify your strategy. So the feedback you'll be getting from me is your objectives consistent with your plan for your post or your content plan? Is your measure is what you're using to measure your KPIs consistent? That's the feedback you're going to get from me. I can't say if your strategy is right or wrong. Your strategy is your strategy, but you're going to have to justify how you came to the strategy. So it's not a matter of right or wrong, guys. It's a matter of, is it cohesive? Does it make sense to the goals that you have outlined, based to the objectives that you have outlined, based on the goals that the organization is trying to achieve? That's the justification you're going to have to make. So if you tell me, say, your primary platform is Instagram, no problem. Justify it. Justify why Instagram is your primary platform. So there's no right or wrong. What will happen is you're going to come, you're going to present, and we all as a class decide whether or not your strategy is effective, and that's, you're going to be graded on certain criteria, your objectives, your KPI, your content structure, all that good stuff. That's what you're going to be graded on. So stop stressing about what I think about. It's not what I think. It's about whether or not it makes sense and it's cohesive.